continue our working day and we'll speak about the restoration or destroyment of Mariyinsky Palace. It's on the edge of survival. We'll have Volodymyr Husakov, President of National Society of Architects, and Larysa, main architect of the main research institute Ukrproektrestavratsia, Olena, Head of Ukraine's historic cities section of the Ukrainian National ICOMOS, and Mykola Yakovyna, President of the Ukrainian National Committee, International Council on Monuments and Sites. Dear colleagues,
I hope that we will, after that meeting, will become colleagues. I am Volodymyr Husakov. I am the President of the National Union of the Architects of Ukraine. Today we'll be talking about Mariyinsky Palace, which is well known to all of you. We Kievites, we know what's with it now. It's one of the biggest pearls of architectural pearls of our city. It's basically the monument of national importance, and we all are concerned very much. The Union of Architects and we all are concerned with what is the situation with this monument now. You all know what is this monument about. The history of that building is very interesting because it's related to the well-known architect Rastrelli, who together with the Ukrainian architect, Kiev architect Ivan Michurin, built the palace. Then there were some reconstructions done, and our famous architects were involved into that. And I would like to say that besides being the palace, this building has survived a lot together with our state. Many times what this building was used for was changed, and the history of our state is related to this palace, to its life, to its history, to its destiny. I would like also to say that today this monument is in a very bad state. In 2010 another restoration started, but in 2010 it was stopped, and the problem was money for restoration. These 5 years have harmed a lot this building, because that building has no funding and it's getting ruined. So basically the question is whether this pearl of architecture will survive or not. We are very much concerned with that. And in July last year, several NGOs, including the Oliynyk Foundation, the Ukrainian Union of Architects and others, we addressed the President of Ukraine, Poroshenko. We all understand what is the situation in Ukraine now, but we are happy that there's a reaction to that. And today we are sure that the state will be dealing with that, but parallel to that, the foundation was set up, and the first project of that foundation is Mariyinsky Palace. And we do hope that all together we will be able to save the monument This building, this palace, was the basis of the whole composition of this district of the city. It is important. It has to be restored. And since 1949, it has been the representative office, the residence of the President of Ukraine. All the foreign leaders were received in it, and that is the best place for that. And this is all I wanted to share with you, and I will give the floor to Olena, and she will tell you a little bit about the history of that building. Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting and for your interest to this pearl of Baroque epoch. I would like to remind briefly what is the history of construction of this building. This palace was designed and constructed by a famous architect, Bartholomew Rastrelli, who was working only in Russia. He lived in Russia for 16 years. His father moved to Russia. He had been living there since he was 16, but he basically designed the most beautiful buildings in St. Petersburg. All of them are the monuments of the World Heritage. Only his unique buildings, St. Andrew's Church and Mariyinsky Palace, have not become the objects of the World Heritage. But the restoration of 1979-82 added the value to the palace. The Larysa Tseuk was one of those who was involved into restoration, and they are talking about 4 periods of construction and restoration of the monument. The first period is the period of construction of the palace, 1748-1755. The story starts, according to the legend, in 1748, when the Empress Elizabeth selected the place for her summer residence, and she made the decision that the summer residence is to be constructed for her, and she invited the famous, in those days, architect Rastrelli to design it and to build. In 1715, the construction was started, and in 1755, the construction was finished. The Rastrelli was just coming, visiting the site. Ivan Michurin, the student of Bartholomew Rastrelli, was in charge of the construction. The palace itself is a typical summer residence, 2-storied building, and what is important is that with 1-storied flanks, and also the park was an integral part of the whole palace complex, and design of the park was also part of the project, and it is an important, very important for all palaces of Baroque style. The artists describe the famous buildings of Baroque period as a pearl in a bowl, a beautiful palace which is surrounded by beautiful park, and the park is part of its architecture, integral part of the whole exterior of the ensemble, and the palace cannot be considered separately from the park. The second construction period is after war, when after the Second World War the palace suffered big destruction. The bomb hit the building, and the building had to be restored. These works were headed by a famous architect, Aleshin, then Zabolotny, and they were and he was designing and constructing the palace, which is who was also designing part of the palace. And from 1949, the palace is the residence for the government of the country. I would like to say that the palace and the park are very important for the landscape of the center of the city. That is a unique Baroque ensemble of the middle and end of the 18th century. And then a famous architect Mariyinsky in 1868-1871 was also restoring it, and the interiors of the palace were made more classical, but the park was even in those days still the Baroque, the pearl of Baroque epoch. After the fire and after the ruination of the Second World War, in 1949, the park was again restored. The latest restoration, and maybe Larysa will talk more about that, was held in 1989, 79, 1982 by the team of authors. These are our famous colleagues. Irina Ivanenko, Natalia Dekhovichna, Larysa Tseuk, Institute Ukrproektrestavratsia, headed by the chief architect Volodymyr Ivanenko, Irina Ivanenko, and the architects Glibchenko, Shklyar, Dekhovichna, Orlova, Shamraeva, and Larysa Tseuk. And all these works were based on very unique scientific research. They examined all the similar architectural buildings, and at that time they have proven that the interiors of the palace belong to certain architectural periods, mostly to Baroque period of time, and they were restored in the style of Rastrelli, and they also discovered some original blueprints of the author. At the same time, there was a restoration of the park done, and the latest restoration, which started in 2007, it was planned to finish it till 2011, but it has never been finished. The palace is being ruined. The park and pre-park territory are in a semi-ruined state, and we believe that all that has been done by our restoration workers are unique, and part of that has been lost. And the park, which is integral part of the palace, and the palace are to be restored. And after the end of the restoration, Mykola will tell about that. We need to apply to the UNESCO World Heritage.
Larysa, Tseuk, main architect of the Institute Ukrproektrestavratsia. Mariyinsky Palace has a special place in architecture heritage of Kiev, or architectural legacy, not because date, architect, its place, its site, its location is the only in our capital sample of palace architecture and park architecture. It beautifies the city for 260 years. But beautifies is not the word we can use. It beautified, and we believe that with our assistance, with your assistance, with our common efforts, we will prevent the situation that it turns into ruins. The building, and as people, they need medical assistance. In this case, we need assistance of restorers to this building, just to prolong its existence, its life, for us, for our children to see it. Mariyinsky Palace was built during 8 years. Real restoration lasted for 8 years. For the society, it's strange, at least. The first scientific restoration, as Olena told, was in 1979-1982. And the volume of restoration work to restore the original view of the facade and interiors didn't have analogs of restoration practice of civic architecture, and that restoration lasted 4 years. This restoration will require more, because in addition to restoration work, and there should be communication must be completely replaced, which in 2003 physically and morally it is old, and engineering unit should be placed. There should be a diesel condition transformation substation, which in the Soviets were in buildings of, it was inside. There also there was the cellars should be created, and there should be access to communication. Also, there was a decision to strengthen the foundation. That takes a lot of work. In 2003, time needed for that work was 48 months. And this is a comparison, 48 months and 8 years. Then the work began to strengthen the foundation. Then it was stopped because it was not financed. In 2008, it was a financial crisis in Ukraine, and it had impact on restoration. It's not only about Mariyinsky Palace, but monuments through Ukraine started to fall down, began ruining, and that budget for renovation of Mariyinsky Palace became chaotic, as usually money came in the end of the year, near New Year. The work, which was planned for summer or winter, we had to do it during winter, and so we don't use correct technologies, etc. That brought to the worst technical situation with the monument, and many people who come to Mariyinsky Palace, and there's a woman who left crying because she was there when it was opened, and now she was there when she saw that yellow fence. Everybody believes that there is active restoration now. Restoration is periodic, and nevertheless, since 2008 until now, they, under such financial conditions, a lot of work was done. This is briefly what I can tell you. Strengthening of the foundation. It was finished in 2014. Transformation station was also for Mariyinsky, and the parliament were taken out, and now cellars are created, and we built underground engineering unit, communication tunnels that connected that unit with the rest of the building. Roof was strengthened, and the central part of roof was replaced, and or the cinema, and it now has a new function. Now it will be a wooden room with all the rest of the rooms, and with the press center, and internal work has begun on interior, because that is the first line of restoration. We started to replace internal networks, engineering networks, and we restored interior in two rooms on the second floor in the central part. Two rooms are done, are finished, and the rooms on the second floor, just for you to see to understand the volume. There are 18 rooms there on the second floor. And we have tunnels, and so this is the situation at present as to restoration. If I was asked to make a list of reasons to finance that project, of course, I would call it this as architect restorer. It's a technical state of facade interiors is in emergency state, and it gets worse in geometric progression. And if we compare it with the body of a person, then the backbone was strengthened, and new heart was transplanted, and that is engineering unit, but it was not launched. Body is dying. The body is dying. The second reason is that it takes a lot of time with such thermal restoration and this long-term project, and it means that it is more costly. And the third reason, the most important, it's near the parliament. It's in the quarter of the government, downtown, the capital, and observation, watching that green fence and trees that grow on the roof is not good, to put it nicely. It damages culture image of the country. And that creates, it's a symbol of stable absence of a solution and stagnation. Those three reasons, they demand to be. I understand that there is the situation in the country, and but at the same time, we need it to be financed, and this project should be financed. This, if it is not financed, that is the assistance to our enemy. It's alarm. For 4 sessions at the Committee of UNESCO of World's Legacy, they make comments to Kiev about the state, and the world's legacy includes ancient Kiev, Sofia, Saint Sophia, with monastery, and Kiev's monastery. Those are two sites which together make that value, universal value, of world, of international level. Mariyinsky Palace belongs to that Asian. That is one of the precious monuments of old Kiev, and one of the sessions says in its resolution, speaks about degradation of historical cultural landscape of the right bank of Kiev. That includes Mariyinsky Palace and Mariyinsky Park, and also city garden. So Larysa is correct. This is the issue of prestige and dignity, national dignity. It is related to some other problems. We have the war crisis, but that is getting worse and in front of us. So there are it's an emergency, and that's why we need to start working right now. And also, a lot of management and technological mistakes were done around during last years. That's sad, and there are some infrastructure and some other facilities that worsen the geological situation, and that has influence on Mariyinsky Park and the Mariyinsky Palace, including that helicopter pad. And historically, that is not the best place because of geology, but for panorama and between Sofia and Law and Kiev's monastery, and we are obliged to preserve that place. It is related not only to our history, though favorites of empire is Elizaveta, brother Razumovsky. That is one of the first pages of the history of the palace, and chancellors of the of Ukraine, Bezborodko. That is one of interesting pages of this history of that palace, and a person from Francisco de Miranda, who was invited by Bezborodko for negotiations. National hero of Venezuela is related to our history, and there is an interesting of the destiny of that place, of that palace, because Augusta Sophia Maria de Hesse-Darmstadt, the wife of Alexander II and mother of Alexander III, and her difficult life during the last years, because she was not able to live in the northern capital. She spent here. New history. All the documents that ambassadors are granted there, and included state visits, and the request of President Kuchma had in 1995 to prepare the palace to the state visit of the first state visit of the president of the U.S., Clinton, to Kiev. You know, at that time, after restoration, good restoration, we had some problems, including engineering, communication, the state of the building, and also including decorations inside of the monument.
Now, taking all that experience into account, we need to do everything to save the monument, and I support the collective of people who understand that what was left halfway undone, this could lead to very sad consequences. Thank you, esteemed experts. Let's hope that this will be taken care of and we will complete the restoration. If the journalists have any questions, please ask. I have two questions. Culture TV channel. Do you know when the state will be able to provide money to restore the monument? And second, how much time it will take for the palace to get ruined? Then this 706 million hryvnias, will it be enough to restore the monument? From the point of view of the state, it's promising. It's been promising all the time. Regularly the money is promised. But as to the amount which is needed to complete, in your press releases, there are figures, and that was calculated as of 2012. But I believe we need to multiply by a certain factor. No one knows what will the exchange rate be tomorrow. The restoration works are very expensive. We usually use the best materials. Many of these materials are not made in Ukraine, and we depend a lot on the exchange rate. The sum is quite floating. When we have money, realistic, we know what to do. We have even procured some of the materials, but we need to start. We need to receive the next tranche, and by the end of that, we will know how much is spent, how much the prices went up. It's all very vague. I would like to add, this is the building which is under the presidential administration. So all the finances, all the funding should come from there. Because in the world there are many methods to restore such unique monument. I can mention 24 foundations who tomorrow are ready to give money to restore this palace. Even Soros Foundation. It's not a problem. There's money in the world. We need to find this money and use that for this purpose. But if that was the object which would be owned by the Kiev community, then we would be able to also invite volunteers. But this is administrative building which is owned by the presidential administration, and the initiative of attracting funds of charity organization should come from there. But we are ready to help that, and I'm sure that we will see the result. I would add, I recollected, I mentioned the Foundation of Preservation of Cultural Heritage, which has been set up and which will be actively working on that. We are discussing today the possibility to present this foundation this month even, and maybe the president will participate in that and the leaders of our government. So we hope that this will be not just the support of the state provided, but our domestic investors will get involved. Thank you. 1+1 channel. And there are volunteers, there are investors who offer money, right? There is a foundation which is planning to get the investors together. No one is offering anything, but at the initiative of the foundation and all stakeholders, I believe we will find investors. We already had some preliminary discussions. In December last year, 2 restored rooms were presented. What has been done in the last half a year, then 14 or 20 million hryvnias were allocated. We continued the work on the hall for awards. They are making marble floors, they put marble columns. The works are going on, were going on. Then there were works on completing, reinforcing the foundation of the left flank, because we finally removed the transformator unit from there. We paid all the debts to the construction people who did not run away but were just waiting. So 20 million is very little for such an object. Thank you. And we have time for a couple of questions. Tony's TV channel. First of all, what is to be restored, first of all? And I understand that there should be some foreign technology of restoration, use some Italian materials. What else? In principle, in 2012, we divided the project of restoration into several stages. First stage is the right flank with the hall for awards, because then it will be possible to use that and parallel to that work on other parts of the building. Then the project on engineering systems, all the engineering systems which were for the whole complex, because without the underground engineering without all the networks, even the hall for awards will not be operating. And the first stage is also the adjacent territory to the right flank. And the next question.
Катерина Красовська, Мінтран'юз. Скажіть,
How many monuments are there in Kiev which are to be restored, and which are to be restored in the first of all, I can mention only the objects which I work on. First of all, Lavra Monastery. It's also a symbolic place where masses of people go every day, and the situation there is also very bad with funding. On the 17th, a big Lavra bell tower will be commissioned. The first stage will be commissioned completely, but there are some works to be done yet, but for that there's no money. I cannot tell you about what is the percentage, but there are many monuments which need restoration works, cosmetic repairs. You can go and see the facades of the buildings. You can go inside the yards. All the saints' church is in awful condition. All there are all the design documents, but there's no money. The same is true about St. Sophia Bell Tower. They are putting tents. There will be a big event there during the Easter, but there is a problem there. Then in St. Sophia there's another building school. It's scary to walk near it. There are many monuments in Kiev, around Kiev. In the east and the west of Ukraine, I would add, Larysa was talking only about the world significance monuments, but you mean the historic environment of Kiev. As a Kievite, as an urbanist, I can tell you that in the last 15 years, some of the damages that took place cannot be restored, and we can divide all that into several parts. First of all, the monuments which require restoration. Secondly, some awful reconstructions of existing buildings which distorted the face of the city. No one in the world is looking at the separate object of architecture. Everyone looks at the cultural landscape, and that's the value. When we go to New York, even though it's not as old, to Paris, once every 10 years we see the same landscape. And in Kiev, for a year we haven't been in some street, and we are horrified seeing how every day the cultural landscape of the right bank is distorted. That's the crime. We need to cry out about that, and we need to insist on urgent restoration of the whole center of the city. There's not a single building which wouldn't be distorted. The city is difficult to recognize, and that is problem number one. Mariyinsky Palace is a unique pearl, but what surrounds it, the landscape of Mariyinsky Park, the buildings nearby, what has been built at Klovsky descent in the adjacent streets. That's awful. There's no such banditism all over the world. I will add some figures. We have 140,000 monuments which are under the protection of the state. These are architectural park monuments, and there's not a single one which we could say money is not needed for that, because even operating any building requires money. Operating the monument, maintaining the monument in good condition envisages certain measures, restoration measures, conservation measures. Eiffel Tower, which is much newer, it's a new industrial object. Even for conservation works, they have the whole team of people. But what do we, not to mention all these complicated processes related to hydrogeology, the building where the facade requires the restoration. So maintaining the proper climate in the monument is a very complicated science. In Kiev, Olena is right. In the latest years, there have been awful ruination taking place. And because of administrative reform that was implemented by Yanukovych, there was a special governmental body on the issues of national cultural heritage set up in 2002, but it was liquidated, and the number of people was reduced, and these people cannot even monitor the processes. Now they can give you a certificate from the Ministry of Culture that we are protecting not 140,000 objects, but little more than 10,000 objects, which are included into the state register. But 140,000, in accordance with the law, are under the protection of the state. And now in Kiev, there were just 5, but now we have only one specialized department of Kiev State Administration that was taking care of the cultural heritage. They are liquidating it, and there will be just one Department of Culture. How efficient this work will be, it's difficult to see. NTN TV channel, the question about the same. You mentioned that in Ukraine there are only 2 works of Rastreli. I'm interested in the second building by Rastreli, St. Andrew's Church. Was there any reconstruction made? St. Andrew's Church. The situation with it is the same as with the Mariyinsky Palace. It's the works that started, they were suddenly completed because there was no money, and the works have never been completed. So some of the soil, if you were there on the upper platform, to the right, you can see that there's all the time the water is ruining. To the left side, there are also problems, and the money to correct it all, there's no money to correct it all. And now I do have hope. Nelia Kukovalska is now looking for sponsors to do these works. Talking about interiors, It has always been owned by church. The services were conducted. Now they stopped conducting services, and they start preliminary works before restoration, some cosmetic repairs. But now, as far as I know, they are not planning any large-scale works. We shall complete on that. At 1 o'clock, the journalists are invited to